But can you take me back to your first EVA and describe the moment when you stepped into the vacuum? Because
it's an interesting experience the first time. But let me back up a little bit. By the time I flew on that mission in 2010, I'd been an astronaut for 12 years by the time I did my first spacewalk. Yeah. And I'd had spacewalk training, EVA training, on and off for, gosh, it must be 10 of those 12 years.
So the training in Nemo.
The training in the neutral buoyancy lab.
The neutral buoyancy lab, yes.
And I'd started off as an ASCAN getting some basic EVA training, and then I'd done the EVA skills course, and then I'd occasionally done EVA training in the intervening years, on and off, little bits here and there, just to stay current. And then I did a lot of it when I got ready for STS-130. So I was very, very well trained, not just in the general skills sense, not just knowing how to get in and out of the airlock and use safety tethers and use tools, but we had mission-specific EVA training where we learned to do the specific tasks. And at the end of the training, we put those tasks together and ran the EVAs for time to get the actual time it would take to do the EVA.
So that actually answers one of my questions that I was going to follow up with, because I had to wonder, when you're putting yourself in that situation, do you ever have that moment where I don't know if I've had enough training? But it sounds like you were doing it for a while.
I always felt like I'd had enough training. But the first time I actually went to do a spacewalk, I realized this one's different. I won't have any divers in the pool to help me if I get in trouble. I'm out in a vacuum. I can't just somehow get to the surface of the pool if there's a problem. I have to sort everything out for myself or with the help of my EVA buddy. And that's different. And then I also remember stopping to think, what's it going to be like to go out of the ISS EVA hatch for the first time? It's 250 miles up. The hatch is facing down, and that's a long way up. And am I going to be comfortable? I like heights, but I still stopped briefly to think, am I going to be comfortable with this, or am I going to feel weird and maybe even worried? And what was interesting is, my EVA buddy Bob went out first. He was EV1, and he went out head first and waited for me outside. I came out second because you only go out one at a time. I went out feet first. It was dark outside, which maybe was a blessing, mostly because I wasn't distracted by looking at the earth below. I went out. I got my head below the level of the hatch, and now I'm hanging underneath the space station by the handrail with a tether connected to the space station. And EVA spacewalkers use a couple of tethers. They use a long tether back to the airlock, but they also use what's called a local tether with a big hook on it, and you put it down on a handrail right where you want to work. So I put my local tether down on the circular handrail around the airlock opening. And Mission Control said, okay, Nick, you're out. We see that. Why don't you do your basic EVA maneuvers? And I remember thinking, okay, I remember what those are. Pitch, yaw, and roll. So when you want to roll left and right, you put your hands up on the handrail and you do this, and that's very easy. One up, one down, and your body just basically responds in roll.
Okay.
And when you want to yaw, that's easy. One forward, one back, and your body just does this. It yaws left and right. But when you want to pitch, you have to do something a bit different. The only way to pitch on a handrail is to twist it really hard. And people who spend time doing that run out of strength in their forearms very quickly. So that's strongly discouraged. What you do instead is you move your hand to the middle and you push above and you push below to pitch yourself in and out. That's the third axis you can control. And I remember doing those things. Mission Control was watching on a camera, and they went well. Just a few little quick exercises to get a sense of how massive you are and how much pushing it takes to move yourself. They said, okay, you've got your local tether on. Why don't you push away? I remember thinking, okay, look at the tether. It's really on. That's good. That's important. I don't want to float away.
You don't want to double check the tether.
Got to check the tether. Even though I have a safety tether on, I don't want to end up at the long end of my safety tether.
I'd have way more tethers.
My safety tether was on. I looked at it. I made sure that the little gate was closed so it couldn't come off. And I pushed away. And I went away a couple of feet, and the safety tether went tight. Sorry, the local tether went tight. I bounced back on it towards the space station. grabbed those handrails again, and I said, okay, I'm done. We're good to go. And we started the EVA, and I think the whole process took a few minutes. And the feedback I got after the flight was good, very quick, efficient start to the EVA. It was a good way to start my first EVA. And off we went, handrail over handrail, down the space station's pressurized module, train of pressurized modules, into the shuttle payload bay to begin our first EVA.
Yeah, wow. I cannot imagine. I imagine, like, just you talking about it kind of made my heart beat a little bit, because just there is a little bit of, there's the stress of, like, okay, I'm in the vacuum of space. But, I mean, the fact that you had the tethers on, you had a massive amount of training is really helpful to kind of get you in the right mindset and kind of prepare you for how you're supposed to move, appropriate ways to go forward.
Yeah. And NASA always has a lot of backups too, Karina. As you know, you need backups in spaceflight. So remember I said we had a safety, we were holding on to handrails doing EVAs always, but we had a safety tether that went back to the airlock, and we put down a local tether. So you think you've got at least 3 ways of staying attached to the space station: your hands, your local tether, and your safety tether. Maybe sometimes you only have 2 of those 3. But you also had a tiny rocket pack. Maybe rocket pack's too grand a word for it, but
it's something to propel you.
Propellant pack attached to the back of your suit. It was called the SAFER, the Simplified Aid for EVA Rescue, SAFER. And if you somehow became genuinely unattached from the space station, like you let go, you didn't have a local tether down when you let go, and your safety tether back to the airlock broke, you would now be floating away. And in the days of the shuttle, in the days of spacewalks from a free-flying space shuttle, in other words, you're in the space shuttle, they open up the payload bay doors, you go out that airlock, and you go and do an EVA. If you became detached from the space shuttle there, heaven forbid, the space shuttle could be maneuvered to go and get you. But the space station didn't have that capability. So we carried this little jetpack called SAFER on the back of our suits. And the way it worked was had a battery power and a supply of cold gas, of nitrogen, pressurized nitrogen in bottles, and tiny little, I mean, really finger-sized jets, 16, I think, of them all over the side of the back and sides and top and bottom of this thing. And if you became detached from the space station, you were supposed to pull out the hand controller from this and turn on the hand controller, and the system would stabilize you, and then fly. And then, those noises are probably exactly what it would have sounded like in the suit. You fire the thrusters to take you back to the space station. And there was training on this. We used virtual reality training, where we would wear goggles that allowed us to see a simulated space station. We'd have a real hand controller, and the software mimicked the behavior of the hand controller, the system, the suit perfectly. I say perfectly. I never actually used the system in space. Sometimes I wish I had.
Yeah, just to have kind of just see how secure it was, and if you
how much fun
to use it. Yeah,
I wanted to see how much fun it would be to fly around like this. You've seen pictures of the manned maneuvering unit, that large self-flying spacesuit propellant system that was used in, I think, the early 1990s by shuttle astronauts to move around. This was a mini version of that. That looked like so much fun to fly. But